In this particular lesson, we will talk about the age structure of the Indian population and how it is giving us a demographic dividend, followed by the declining sex ratio and the causes for it. Then we're going to talk about the trends in the literacy rates of the country, and we are also going to talk about the distribution of rural and urban population in India. To understand the age structure of the Indian population, we need to look at this particular chart, which talks about the people between the age groups of 0 to 14, 15 to 59, and 60 plus years. If you recall our discussion on dependency ratio, we said that dependency ratio is equal to the number of people below the age of 15 and the number of people above the age of 64 divided by the number of people between the ages of 15 to 64, and this ratio is multiplied by 100 to give you a percentage. If you look at this particular chart, we can see that gradually the number of people between the age groups of 15 to 59 is increasing, whereas the number of people between 0 to 14 years of age is decreasing. So 15 to 59 primarily is the working age group, so the working population is increasing in India. Now this is actually giving us a demographic dividend, an advantage that probably the working age group is going to bring about some kind of benefits to the economy of the country. To understand demographic dividend even better, we need to look at the age pyramid of 1961. If you look at the age pyramid of 1961, we will see that the base of the pyramid is pretty broad, which means that the number of people in the age group of 0 to 4 is pretty great or significant, which means the fertility rate is very high. If you look at the middle part of the pyramid, which signifies the proportion of people in the age group of 15 to 64, so the middle part is broad, which means the proportion of working age group is more. If you look at the pinnacle or the top of the pyramid, we see that people above the age of 69 is significantly less, which means that there are more number of working age group people in the working age group than dependents in the population in 1961. There is a significant change in the age pyramid in 1981. If you look at the age pyramid of 1981, you would see that the base of the pyramid has become a little less wide, which means that the people in the age group of 0 to 14 or 0 to 4 is coming down, which means the fertility rates are decreasing. The middle part of the pyramid is broadening, which means that the number of people in the working age group is increasing, and the number of dependents above the age of 64 is also significantly low. The demographic dividend, that is the advantage of having a younger population, can be further seen in the age pyramid of 2001. The base of the pyramid is not that wide. The middle part of the pyramid is pretty broad, as well as the pinnacle of the pyramid is very narrow. So the number of working people, or rather the proportion of people in the working age group, is increasing significantly. The projections of the year 2026 would further prove my point about the demographic dividend. The base of the pyramid is very narrow. That means fertility rates have come down. The middle part of the pyramid is very broad. That means the proportion of people in the working age group is significantly high. But the number of people in the age groups of 60 to 80 is increasing gradually, which means that the number of dependents are now increasing. So from the year 1961 to the year 2026, India will have a window of opportunity in terms of demographic dividend. So we must utilize this opportunity in terms of economic development of the country. So now what is the demographic dividend? By now we all know it is the advantage of having a younger population. If we look at the data from 2020, we will see that the average Indian is just about 29 years of age, whereas the average Chinese and American is 37 years of age, an average European 45 years of age, and an average Japanese 48 years of age, which means that there will be more number of working population than dependents in our country. But remember children, this is just a potentiality, and this potentiality must be translated into reality. So we have a significantly large population within the working age group, that is between 15 to 64 years of age. But this does not mean that they are all workers. That is why I emphasize here that this is just a potentiality which must be translated into reality. And this can be possible only if the government provides proper educational opportunities and employment opportunities, so that the window of opportunity that is coming from the demographic dividend can be utilized properly. After having discussed the age structure of the Indian population, we move over to the sex ratio in India, and we will try to understand the sex ratio from 1901 to 2011. Now, when we were discussing sex ratio in an earlier lesson, we had said that more number of male babies are born than female babies. For example, for every 100 female babies, probably 105 or 106 male babies are born. But despite that, the sex ratio is slightly in favor of females. That means ideally the sex ratio in other countries would be 1050 females per 1000 males. Now, the slight advantage in favor of the females is probably because the female babies are more resistant to diseases, and at the other end of the life cycle, females tend to outlive males. That is the reason why the sex ratio is slightly in favor of the females. But if we look at India, the situation is exactly the opposite. If we look at the years from 1901 to 2001, please refer to the slide, you will see that the sex ratio is gradually declining. In 2001, it is an abysmal 933 females per 1000 males. That is an area of concern. More than the sex ratio, even a greater area of concern would be the child sex ratio. The child sex ratio began to be calculated in the year 1961. Now, from 1961, if you look at the child sex ratio, which is the sex ratio in the age group of 0 to 6 years of age, you would see that the lowest is in 2001, which is 927. So 927 female babies in the age group of 0 to 6 per 1000 male babies in the same age group. In this particular slide, we are going to discuss the causes for the decline in sex ratio. Now, in India, the escapists have said that the sex ratio is probably declining because of high maternal mortality rates. That means more number of mothers are dying during childbirth. But then, this is not an acceptable argument. Why is this not an acceptable argument? Because we in India have quite a strong health infrastructure. So the maternal mortality rates should not be that high. So higher maternal mortality rates, even though researchers suggest is a cause for the decline in sex ratio, is something that cannot be accepted. The second reason for the decline in sex ratio would be sex-selective abortions. Sex-selective abortions are primarily done when the sex of the fetus of the child is determined through technologies of ultrasonography, and if it is found that the sex of the child or the sex of the fetus is a female, then parents undergo a surgery which is called female feticide. The next reason for the decline in sex ratio is female infanticide, where after the birth of the female baby, the babies are killed mercilessly. So these are definitely the reasons why there is decline in sex ratio in India. Now, the most interesting fact here is the decline in sex ratio is significantly seen in the prosperous regions of the country, such as Punjab, Chandigarh, Maharashtra, Haryana, Gujarat, etc. So what is the relationship between prosperity or prosperous regions and the declining sex ratio? I mean, shouldn't the sex ratio be declining in those regions which are characterized by poverty and starvation. Probably in those families, a female should be looked upon as a burden because the parents, would have to pay the dowry after the marriage or during the marriage of their daughter. But this is not the case. The sex ratio is declining in those regions which are prosperous in nature, especially regions such as Maharashtra. In fact, in Punjab, if you look at the child sex ratio, it is even below 800 per 1,000 males. So the researchers have found out the relationship. They have said that people in the prosperous regions have access to the ultrasound technologies, and they use these technologies to determine the sex of the child, despite the fact that the government has declared these technologies for sex determination as illegal according to the PNDT Act of 1996, which is the Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Regulation and Prevention Act of 1996, which was further modified and made even more strict in the year 2003. So that means what? That means that determination of the sex of the fetus is illegal. But if you want something illegal to be done, you need money. So the prosperous regions are coughing up money to get certain illegal things done. That is sex determination. There are also other explanations for this. In fact, researchers, after having conducted a survey in these regions, have found out that the parents of these prosperous regions have said that yes, the government tells us that we will have smaller families, we must have smaller families, all right. If we have smaller families, we must be given the right to choose the sex of our children. That is the arrogance of the parents that have been found in these regions. So this is extremely ridiculous that parents of prosperous regions, they wish to choose the sex of their child because according to the government, they must follow the small family norm. In this particular slide, we will talk about the literacy rates in India. What is the importance of having a literate population? If the population of a country is literate, the quality of life in that country would improve, especially for the citizens. A literate population would contribute significantly to the economy. They would be an important part of the human resource of the country. They would also have greater access to proper health facilities. They would be more aware about sanitation facilities in India. If we look at the literacy rates in India, in this particular chart, we are tracing the literacy rates from 1951 to 2001. If we look at the literacy rates, we see that the literacy rates are gradually improving in India, both male literacy as well as female literacy. But female literacy is improving at a faster rate than male literacy, probably because we started at a very low point here in 1951. We see that female literacy is at 8.9, whereas in 2001, it is 54.2. So that is a massive jump. If we look at the literacy trends in India, we can say that the literacy levels have improved after independence, especially from 1951 onwards. Female literacy rates have been improving faster than male literacy rates. Now, literacy rates can vary according to various groups and according to various regions, or in terms of various groups and regions. If you look at the general category population, their literacy level is better than the literacy levels of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population. And within the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population, if you look at women literacy rates, that's even further low. Region-wise, if we talk about Kerala, we will see that Kerala is almost approaching universal literacy, which is absolutely like the first world countries, whereas Bihar is lagging behind. In this particular slide, we're going to compare the proportion of rural population and urban population. According to the data or the recent data, we can say that the percentage of people living in the rural areas is 69% and the percentage of people living in the urban areas is 31%. Now let us look at the slide. Let's look at the percentage of total, the percentage in terms of rural and urban population. If you look at rural population, gradually the percentage of people living in the rural areas is decreasing and the percentage of people living in the urban areas is increasing. Now, a reason why the urban population is growing is because of migration from rural to urban areas. Now, most of these migrations are happening to the metropolitan cities or the metropolises. The migration is so intensive and happening at such a fast rate that urban infrastructure is unable to deal with this migration. Thus, more number of people are migrating to the urban areas. This can be expressed in another way by saying that people today are attributing greater significance to the urban way of life than the rural way of life. There are various reasons for this. There was a time when agriculture contributed significantly to the country's economy. Today, agriculture contributes just about 1/4 to the country's GDP. So even though maximum number of people are engaged in agriculture, agriculture is no longer economically beneficial for the country. And people who are engaged in agriculture, they are also engaged in other activities. For example, they are engaged in the transport services. They are also engaged in crafts and manufacturing industries. There are many people living in the villages of India who commute daily to the urban areas for work. So the urban areas is acting as a pull factor for the people living in the rural areas. There's another reason why the urban way of life is more important today than the rural way of life. It is because of the impact of mass media. The mass media today portrays the city as an attractive place because city offers its people a certain degree of anonymity. In the villages, everyone is known to everyone else. In the village, you're referred to as a general category person or a Dalit person. In the city, you can leave all those parochial identities behind. Nobody would bother to ask your caste identity, your religious identity. So in a city, you can be anonymous, and that anonymity is greatly attractive for the people living in the urban areas. Now, another reason why the urban way of life is more important is the fact that a greater number of rural population is becoming part of the consumer economy. And this consumer economy is greatly manifested in the urban way of life. The urban way of life is associated with capitalistic living. Now, as the rural population come to the urban areas to live, they are sucked up in this entire capitalistic economy. They also become consumers. They develop consumer aspirations. So as a result of that, the rural population, they find the cities to be an attractive place where they can express their consumer aspirations. Now, why are they leaving the villages? They are leaving the villages because in the villages, they're losing their common property resources. For example, ponds, pastures, lands, pastures, they're losing these common property resources. Now, if they lose their ponds, if they lose their lands, what would they live on? So, the rural areas leave nothing for the people living there. So, they have to move to the urban areas for better opportunities. And in the rural areas, the opportunity for cash income is almost nil. Whereas in the urban areas, there is a greater opportunity for cash income. It can be in the form of work in the factories. It can be in the form of work as domestic servants in the households. So the opportunity for cash income is far greater in the urban areas than the rural areas. Hence, we see people are migrating in large numbers from the rural areas to the urban areas. So we can conclude by saying that the public face of India is becoming more and more urban than rural. The media focuses more on the cities, primarily the metropolises. It can be the city's squalor. It can be the slums. In fact, the media is greatly interested, both the Indian media as well as the foreign media is greatly interested in Dharavi as one of the largest slums in South Asia. So the urban areas are a focus of interest for the media. So the public face of India is becoming more and more urban. But what about political dynamics? When we talk about political dynamics, when we talk about vote bank, it is still the rural areas that is more important. So when politicians come looking for votes, they come looking for votes in the rural areas because they know that it is the rural population that is going to vote them to power. Thank you for listening and stay safe.